Amateur Traveler is in its 20th year now, but can you imagine if I had people on the show who had never been to the destination but had just read about it or seen a movie about it? That wouldn't make any sense at all, and you wouldn't listen. We all know how important it is to receive advice from people who know a destination to get the most authentic local experience. And a great option for experiencing this is Explore Worldwide and their authentic small group adventures, led by local tour leaders, perfect for solo travelers who want to meet like minded people with a desire for adventure. I'm often an independent traveler, but two of my last three trips were with small group tours because they organize everything and it's a lot easier. If you want to recreate the tour I did to Malta, they have a Malta and Gozo Discovery Tour. I'm intrigued by one of their tours called A Taste of Sicily. The company again is Explore Worldwide, and visit exploreworldwide.com to learn more. And thanks to Explore Worldwide for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. The nights are long, the days are short, and the weather is chilly to downright cold, depending on where you are. It's a good time to slip into a Quince iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at only $50. You can treat yourself to everyday luxury at an affordable price with Quince. If you really want to dive into luxury, you can check out their leather handbags, washable silk shirts, and European linen sheet sets. Whatever you're looking for at Quince, all the prices are 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they do that by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the middleman. They only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. But you've already heard me rave about my Quince travel pants. Treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler, and thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
Got my bags packed, I'm on a roll. I'm heading out there and I'm ready to go. I'm looking real good in my passport photo. Oh, no.
Amateur Traveler, episode 244. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about cafes and new wine and water jousting as we go to Languedoc region of France. Welcome to the Amateur Traveler. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. Before we get into today's interview, I do have two travel stories for you. The first one, Southwest is in a bit of hot water again because a flight attendant took a baby away from her mother after the mother reportedly slapped the 13-year-old child for crying on a Dallas to Albuquerque flight, and other passengers complained. And I do not envy Southwest being in this position because I think they were damned if they did and damned if they didn't. And speaking of damn airlines, American Airlines is going to be charging extra for the front row seats in the passenger cabin. That won't cause me any grief because I like to sit in the back, get there early, and find a place for my luggage. For links to both those stories, check out the show notes at amateurtraveler.com. Amateur Traveler again this week is sponsored by Audible.com. You can get a free trial for 2 weeks along with a free book, yours to keep, by going to amateurtraveler.com/free book. I'm in the mood to read some travel writing now, or to listen to some travel writing in Audible's case, after coming back from the Book Passage Travel Writing Conference. And so the book that I'm interested in is Tim Cahill's Pass the Butterworms. I haven't read it yet, but that's the one that I've been recommended. And having heard excerpts from Tim's writing read to us over the weekend, I've got to get me some Tim Cahill. One other new sponsor this week is nursingatsea.com, and that is one of my new ventures, and that is a way for nurses who want to get their continuing education credits to use the budget that they have and do it on a cruise. And we've now scheduled the first cruise for January, a cruise of the Western Caribbean. Check that out at nursingatsea.com. I'd like to welcome to the show Christine Cantera, who is coming to us from Montpellier, France, or coming to us to talk to us about Montpellier, France. I think you're actually in the States right now. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very nice to be had here.
And I should say that Christine writes the Boots and All Guide for France, which is, and I want to call it Why Go France, but the URL is really francetravelguide.com.
Yes.
So you normally live in France.
Yes, I do.
What led you to France? You are not French by origin.
I am not. I am American, and my family's Irish and Italian. Love, actually, led me to Montpellier, France. I was living in Rome, actually. I lived there for several years, and I had gone to Montpellier with a friend of mine just to see it. She had a cousin that was there, and I met a guy while I was there who is from New Jersey, which is where I'm from. And of all things, met him in an Irish pub, and he's from New Jersey. And he is a freelance writer like I am. And obviously we hit it off because it was a very strange coincidence. And thus began our torrid love affair. For about a year, we traveled back and forth from Rome to Montpellier. We met up in Venice and Barcelona and Paris, and we've been together ever since. And now we live together in Montpellier with our cat.
And could you put Montpellier on the map for us? Because I had to look this one up.
You know what? That is my goal in life, is to put Montpellier on the map. Montpellier is on the southern coast of France. The southern coast of France goes up in the middle. It kind of starts from Spain and goes up and then comes back down when it meets Italy. We're at the northernmost part of that coast on the southern coast of France. We're 4 hours directly south of Paris. We are 4 hours east of Barcelona and 4 hours west of Nice by train.
Okay. And why should I go to Montpellier or to that region, which is the, could you say the name of the region?
The Languedoc region.
Okay.
That name actually comes from the Occitan language, which is the original language of the region. And like if you talk to a really old person there, they might speak Occitan. So don't think that you don't know French. If they're speaking to you, they're probably speaking to you in the Occitan dialect, which is very strong. Why should someone go to Montpellier? Well, first of all, it's very beautiful. Almost all of the buildings there are made from crushed shells and sand. So it kind of looks like a big sandcastle town. It's all very bleached white. And unlike in Provence, there's not a lot of color. Like there's no colored shutters or anything. Everything is kind of a bluish gray, the shutters and doors and things. So it's very kind of beachy, bleached white. It's very beautiful. Like I said, we're so close to Paris and Barcelona and Nice. I find it to be a great hub. It's very easy to do a weekend trip to Barcelona. It's super fast on the TGV train down from Paris. It's also really close to everything else that's there in terms of Provence. It's very close to Arles and Avignon, pretty close to Carcassonne. I would probably recommend an overnight trip to Carcassonne, but I have done it as a day trip, and it's very accessible. It's very close to the sea. We're about 4 miles inland. I can actually see the sea from the Montpellier area of Montpellier. You know, it's the south of France. I mean, it's awesome. But it's not like super shishi, super yacht, Saint-Tropez crazy like that. And it's not really remote like a dusty little town that you happen to come across. You know, like I said, it's totally accessible. It's the south of France, but it's not like, wow, I don't belong here at all.
So culturally, it sounds like even though it's further west of Marseille, for instance, that it's kind of culturally in between kind of the grittiness of Marseille and the foo-foo-ness of Cannes and Saint-Tropez.
I would say frou-frou-ness in terms of how it looks. Centreville, which is the city center, is really, really, really old. And not a lot of it has changed in the last 1,000 years or so. So you do get a lot of that very typical, very beautiful Southern French look. It's not gritty. First of all, it's immaculate. They clean the streets like 3 times a day.
Oh, interesting. Okay. That seems very un-French, but okay.
I know. We have incredible public works in Montpellier. You know, there's always like hanging baskets of flowers and the Christmas decorations and whatever. Their public works is really great. So it's very clean. It's not really gritty. It's very vibrant, though. It's actually known as the San Francisco of France. It's the gay capital of France.
Okay.
And it's also a huge student population. So depending on what time of year you go, there's a lot of students around. So it's just kind of lively. There's not a lot of people dressed in head to toe Gucci sitting around. Like it's normal people.
Okay.
You know?
And then I should just say, because I noticed you said centre-ville rather than centre-ville, and so we're going to get people who are going to comment about your French or my French in this.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Let me just say this. I am fluent in Italian. So don't, judge me later. I am fluent in Italian, and it really, unfortunately, impacts the way I speak French. And I do not speak French well, although I do speak it, but not very well in terms of my pronunciation. And unfortunately, they tend to be sticklers sometimes. So I do get corrected a lot, and feel free to, write all the hate mail you want and totally correct me, because I do not pronounce things very well. And I apologize.
So when I come to visit you, or when friends come to visit you, what are the top 3 things you take them to see?
Top 3 things. The first thing, which I love to do, is I usually pick them up at the train station, the Montpellier Saint-Roch train station. And the main road that goes out of the train station is a beautiful palm tree lined street. And it's so beautiful. And then at the end of that street, you are dumped into the Place de la Comédie, which is the main square in town. And it's actually one of the largest squares in Europe.
And now, what I heard you say was the Square of Comedy.
Yes, it is the Square of Comedy, which is ironic considering that that's where they used to chop people's heads off with a guillotine. So,
well, sometimes humor doesn't translate. That's really what we learned from this.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why it's called the Place de la Comédie. It's always something that I've kind of taken for granted.
People were laughing their heads off?
Probably, literally. But it's a very large square, and it's lined with cafes, and the opera is at the far end. Mm-hmm. And there's a beautiful fountain that's the Trois Grâces, the Three Graces, mm-hmm. Three Muses. And it's so French. And it's that's the place where you can just sit and look at people walk by all day for the price of a cup of coffee. Like the typical thing that people say about France, it is epitomized in the Place de la Comédie. And I love to take guests there that have never been to Montpellier or really to anywhere outside of Paris, because it really is the French experience that I find that a lot of people look for in Paris, but kind of have to compromise on because of the traffic and the modernity of it sometimes. So it's really nice. And there's nothing better than spending an afternoon just sitting there and watching the world go by. It's absolutely beautiful. That's my first thing. The other thing that I love is the Jardin des Plantes, the botanical garden in Montpellier. It's the oldest in France. It was founded in 1593. And they have plants from all over the world, and they have a tropical greenhouse, and it's very well curated, and there's a lot to learn there. And it's also just a wonderful way to kind of walk around in beautiful weather and look at pretty flowers. It's just an absolute oasis. I really love it. So that's the second thing. The third thing I love, it's such a great walking around city. Actually, even since I started going there in 2004 was the first time I ever went. And even since I've been there, they've pedestrianized almost the entire city. There's really probably maybe 3 or 4 streets that come in off the main ring road, and everything else is pedestrianized. And it's just a wonderful experience. It makes it a lot quieter, makes it a lot more quaint seeming. You can walk up the main shopping street and not have to move aside for cars, which is such a wonderful change. I'm that way, though. I love walking around. I mean, that's basically what I do whenever I visit a place, just kind of walk around and look at everything and take pictures. In terms of things to see, there's a tiny little tourist toot-toot train. It's not on rails, it's on wheels. They have them in theme parks and stuff. Well, you can take it. It leaves from the Comedy and it goes all around town. And it's awesome. I think it costs €3. And you sit on it. It takes 45 minutes. And you toot around town and see everything you need to see. Figure out what you want to go back and see again. And I really love that. It's a really fun thing to do.
And I have to confess, I've never done one. I mean, I've seen them in the south of France. In Cannes, for instance, they had one. But there's something of getting over the idea of being on a tourist train that I really haven't quite managed to do yet. So
I know. I said to my boyfriend, I really want to go on that train. He was like, I really don't. But I convinced him because he had done it when his parents came and everything. So I really wanted to do it. People really kind of ignore it because it goes several times a day and people are just kind of used to it, the locals, and they don't really even notice it. They just kind of step out of the way and it goes along and Sometimes, though, it passes one of the outdoor bars that we go to, and if we're sitting there, we'll raise our glasses and cheer to them. But otherwise, there's not a lot of heckling or anything. It's just really kind of your own little world on that train.
Now, I'm sure coming from New Jersey, a lot of people can't understand why you moved to the south of France from the Garden State. But if I come there, what's going to surprise me?
There were several things that surprised me, and that was even from living in Europe. The thing that surprised me most were the flea markets. There's flea markets in town, and there are some that are just a little bit out of town, like a quick bus ride away. Mm-hmm. They usually happen in the fall and spring, and it's like things from people's homes. It's not hoity-toity crazy antiques or anything. It's like a bazaar. It's like a secondhand, real live flea market. And the thing I love about it that surprised me is they don't have HGTV there. They don't know about like shabby chic and purchase this fabulous thing and put it in your living room. So they're like, yeah, I don't want this anymore. It's 50 years old. Meanwhile, you get it for like a quarter. I mean, I got like a cut crystal ice bucket for 50 cents. Because they were like, well, yeah, it's old, and I'm like, old? It's awesome. I totally want this in my house. Like, I furnished our whole house from flea markets because I got Oriental rugs for like €5 and, oh God, everything. I found everything there. And they just don't realize how amazing it is for someone who's not French to not only happen upon a French flea market, which is like the Olympics for people who like to decorate their homes, and to see the stuff that's like so cheap. They could be making money hand over fist and like they don't care. It's like, oh, whatever. So that was a huge surprise. There's a lot of stores that sell baby clothes, and that's really surprising to me. Like really adorable high-end baby clothes, and they're everywhere. I don't know why. No one's able to answer me why. I found that to be really strange, but I am always the best gift giver when it comes to people's baby showers because they have these amazing clothes that are so adorable and tiny and beautiful. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. And it comes from France. So if you know anyone that's planning on having a kid or a kid's birthday, like go to Montpellier, France and stock up because they've got great stuff there. Those were the two biggest surprises. I know those seem kind of strange, actually.
That's all right. Surprises shouldn't be predictable.
I guess so. Oh, the other thing that I actually learned, it wasn't a thing that was viscerally learned. I learned it from talking to people that live there, is they are heavy into their cocktail hour. It's called the seaside, which is the 6 to 8, and it's from 6 to 8, and everyone does it. That's what people do, whether they're coming from work or whether they are meeting up with someone before going to dinner. It's the seaside. You could be sitting in a cafe at 5:30 and it's empty. At 6 o'clock, it's packed. And then at 8 o'clock, it's empty again. It's almost like with military precision, which is funny for a place that's so slow-paced. The seaside is a huge, huge thing. And everybody does it. And if you're the kind of person who likes to eat at 6 o'clock, you are going to miss out on a really incredible experience.
And is there a signature thing to order when one is in a cafe between 6 and 8?
Well, there's actually no signature drink necessarily. Like a Kier is not a Languedoc-based drink, but a lot of people order that, which is the creme de cassis with white wine. That's a big thing. Pastis, which is originated in Marseille. When they couldn't make absinthe anymore, they invented pastis, which is a fennel anise-based drink. Water's added to it. It comes out looking like iced tea. And when you add water to it, it turns a milky yellow. And I find it very refreshing. However, it is really strong and it will knock you on your butt. So it's not like, oh, this is refreshing, I'm going to have 3 of them. Like, there's really just kind of the one. So those are two really popular drinks. Languedoc is also really known for their rosé. Languedoc is actually the largest winemaking region on the planet.
Really?
Yeah. Isn't that really weird? They're huge, and they're very proud of their wines. And you're actually going to be hard-pressed in Montpellier to find a place that doesn't have wines from Languedoc. Like, they are really, really proud of it. And their rosé wine in particular is fantastic. Fougère is one of the brands that comes from Languedoc, and that's really popular. And La Marouette which is a Syrah rosé, which is tremendous. I highly recommend it. And it's, you can have it with ice cubes or not. Doesn't really make any difference. And I find that to be a delightful Sisawit drink. It's my drink.
Okay. Now that you lived there, what do you find as tourists go down there and they look at the guidebooks? What do the guidebooks miss? That when you're in Languedoc, you really should see this.
Off the Place de la Comédie, there is an esplanade, Champ de Mars, I believe it is.
Okay.
Champ de Mars. I believe that's what it's called. I could be wrong about that, though. But it's a lovely tree-lined esplanade. You can walk down it. The Musée Fabre is off there, and there's a children's playground, and there's a fountain, and blah, blah, blah. But off the side is kind of a miniature exhibition hall, and they host photographic exhibits. And it's free. And like no one ever goes. I go there all the time. I'm there the first day of every new exhibit that they have. I love it. It's air conditioned, first of all, which is awesome. It's free. And they have amazing photography exhibits. They had the Ouija exhibit there. You know, the first paparazzi guy from New York.
Okay. No, I was thinking I was familiar with his board, but...
No, actual Ouija.
Okay.
The famous paparazzi guy from New York, the first one, basically. They had his photographs there, and it's wonderfully curated, really well lit, and they always have really, really interesting photography exhibits from all around the world. And I highly recommend that, and just no one really knows about it.
The only thing I would take exception with is I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the original paparazzi was named Paparazzi. I think that it's derived from...
Yes, that's derived from a Fellini film.
Right.
Yeah, but Ouija came before that Fellini film.
Ah, got it. Okay. Not the first one to be called that, but the first one with that style of photography, ambush photography.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like he was the one that paid off cops, and I think he had a police radio, and so he had pictures of like dead people like falling out of buildings or whatever. And he also has some pretty famous photos of Marilyn Monroe. I believe Marilyn Monroe riding on an elephant, if I'm not mistaken. He has some very iconic photos actually from the New York era. They've had all kinds of things. They had a huge panoramic exhibit, which was wonderfully hung. And no one ever's in there. It's like 3 people ever when I've been in there. And I don't know if it's in guidebooks, but I know that a lot of tourists walk right by it, marching to the Musée Fab, which I call it Musée Fab. Again, feel free to send hate mail. It's Fabre, Fabre.
Fable. Okay.
Which I actually don't like the Musée Fab.
Okay. How about a wider field in Languedoc in general? For instance, you and I, when we started talking, you mentioned Carcassonne. That's definitely on my list to go to. But what should be on my list? What am I missing in that area?
I really love Aigues-Mortes.
Okay, I don't know that one.
It means Dead Sea. It's a fortified town, much like, well, actually, unlike Carcassonne, because Carcassonne, there's like the fortified town that you can walk through. It's like a museum. But Aigues-Mortes is an entire town that's inside walls, and people actually live there.
Okay.
And they have shops and restaurants and all kinds of things there. And it is back from the coast, although there are waterways. It's not on the beach, but it looks like it when you're there. And it is a walled town. You walk through the gates, and there it is. And it's like a secret garden almost. Because when you're in it, you really feel like you're inside these walls, unlike a lot of other walled cities that tend to be much larger. This was very small. And the Place Saint-Louis has amazing restaurants. Their specialty is moules frites, the steamed mussels with French fries, which are great. And it is in the area of the Camargue. It's a France national park, and it's like a wetlands and a lot of marshes. And that's where the famous white horses of the Camargue are from. They're famous for their sea salt, which you can go and buy sea salt in Aigues-Mortes. It's just a wonderful day trip, and no one really knows about it outside of France. Actually, I think outside of like southern France, nobody knows about it, because I've been there in high season, and it's not nearly as crowded as I thought it was going to be.
Interesting. And how about the flip side of that? The places that you've been that you knew about ahead of time in Languedoc that were disappointing?
The Musée Fab. It's a huge museum. It's not a huge museum square footage-wise, but it's a pretty famous museum, and a lot of people know about it, and they don't have any super famous paintings. If there is a painting that you love and you've looked it up online and you see that it's a Musée Fab, definitely go. But they recently redid it and kind of modernized the inside of it, even on the outside it looks like a typical French chateau. And it's the worst lit museum I've ever been in. I had to do yoga just to be able to see the pictures.
So it isn't necessarily the quality of the artwork, but the museum experience itself doesn't really bring out its assets.
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
Interesting.
They have great Dutch portraits, which is a personal favorite of mine.
Love
and those
them.
are in the internal area and they're lit pretty well. But they have not sunlight streaming in on the paintings. I mean, they're not stupid, but it's just really badly lit. And I find it to be a waste of the admission because you can't see anything.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. I noticed too that the guidebooks talk about the Antigone district in Montpellier, which, funnily enough, from the city center, you have to walk through a shopping mall to get to. And it's this area that was built basically to entice huge, like IBM and Dell have headquarters in Montpellier. And it was kind of built to be and we can house your employees.
Okay.
And it was built by, I believe, a Spanish architect. And it kind of looks very Art Deco-y, fascist architecture-y, severe looking.
You just went in two different directions there. Okay.
I know. Just very straight lines and pillars and much more severe than the dusty, sandy look of Centreville. And all the guidebooks are take a walk through the Antigone. It's like taking a walk through an apartment complex. I mean, it's apartments and it's got some restaurants that are decent, but not any more decent than the ones in Centreville. And it's just kind of okay, you walk to the end and there's a fountain and a building that looks like La Défense, and then you walk back. It's not a big thing. It's a nice walk if you've got nothing to do for an afternoon, but I definitely wouldn't go out of my way to walk through a shopping mall to get there.
Now, you mentioned the advantage of the one museum that you like with the photography was that it had air conditioning. When should we go to Languedoc? When should we go to Montpellier?
Not in August. July and August are really hot there. The only upside to that is that we are really close to the beach, and so you can definitely head to the beach. Palavas is the beach town that's just a couple miles away. If you're a beach bum, it's awesome. You go to the beach all day, you come back into town, you do your seaside, and then you go to dinner. It's great. But if you're more into walking around town and taking in exhibits, taking tours of the sites in town, I would not recommend summertime. It is really, really hot. Definitely the shoulder months, early spring, even into late fall. Christmas is beautiful. They have a big Christmas village set up in the Place de la Comédie with shops and mulled wine and very quaint and European and lovely. I love the Christmas holidays there. I just find it to be very beautiful. And spring is so lush and gorgeous. So those would be my months. I would say probably April is great if you don't really like hot weather because it tends to be pleasant. You'll probably need a sweater at night, but you won't be sweating in the daytime.
As we get outside of Montpellier in Languedoc, what are your top three things that we should see?
Outside of Languedoc, definitely my number one is Sète, S-E-T-E, Sète. It's about 15 or 20 minutes away by train. It costs €2 maybe by train. It's just right down the road. It's known as the Venice of Languedoc, and it's got a lovely canal that runs through the middle of it and then kind of branches off to a couple sides. A great town, a great beach town. It has wonderful restaurants. They have festivals all summer, July, August, September. There's festivals every weekend, and they do water jousting, which is awesome to see if you've never seen it.
I can't even picture this. They're on seahorses, clearly.
No, they're on, they look like gondolas.
Oh, okay.
And it's been around since the 1600s. They have it in Sète and Béziers, but I like Sète the best because they have a brass band that whips the crowd into a frenzy, and they wear these traditional sailing costumes, not ornate costumes, but definitely very traditional with the straw, flat-brimmed hats that kind of look like plates almost, really round and flat. And they joust on the ends of boats.
Joust as in there's a long stick that they're pointing at each other.
Yep. And
Okay.
there's a whole team that does the boat, and then there's a guy on the end of it with a stick poking it at another guy on another boat and until one of them falls off. It's awesome. It's so much fun to watch. And the crowd totally gets into it, and they're wearing, it's either red or blue are the team colors. And they get totally into it, and they wear their colors, and they're cheering, and they're screaming. And it's so much fun to watch. And it's a unique experience that I really have never seen anywhere else.
That is interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And there's also a museum of junk there, which is really cool. It's almost like a surreal museum that has things from the past that people would have maybe like in their attic. I found it to be a very interesting viewpoint into French life, just normal French life, not the life that has been shown in oil paintings, but just normal everyday French life. It goes back about 100 years worth of kind of stuff that people used every day. And I just find that to be really interesting.
Your first place set?
Yeah, my first place is set. My second place would have to be Nîmes.
Mm-hmm.
Nimes, Nîmes. It's packed with Roman ruins.
Right, sure.
And Roman era things. And I think it might have been someone famous who said, if you'd like to see Roman ruins, the best place to go is France. And it's true. France has great Roman ruins. And Nîmes definitely is wonderful. It has an arena, Colosseum-looking thing.
Still in use, as I recall.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I believe it was 2 years ago, but it might have been last year, Metallica played there. And it's on DVD. I think it's called Une Nuit en France, One Night in France. And they filmed their concert. And it's a great way to see the arena because they have it lit really cool. And the guys were really into playing there. They were like, we're gladiators. Like they were totally into it. Yes, it is very much in use. They have bullfights in there, which, if I'm not mistaken, are not...
The bull doesn't die, as I recall, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
They are as humane as bullfights could be, in that you don't, eat the bull afterwards.
As I recall, the bullfighter is at more risk in the bullfights they do in Nîmes than the bull itself.
That's correct. Yes, very much so. Although, as far as I know, there's nothing in Nîmes that is a testament to this, but the word denim comes from Nîmes.
Oh, denim. That's right. I'd forgotten that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, denim. It's the fabric that made blue jeans. Denim comes from Nîmes, which I just think is cool. But yeah, there's a lot to see there. Great restaurants, a nice town. It's a little less characteristic, I would say. It is a pretty town, but I find Montpellier to be a lot prettier.
Okay, so you go to Nîmes for the ruins.
Yes.
Okay.
And the Feria de Nîmes, which is the bullfights that go on for a week. They also have awesome music festivals in the summer. Like all summer, there's always somebody huge playing at the arena in Nîmes.
Okay.
Aigues-Mortes and Set and Nîmes. Those are my top three. When people come to see me, I always make sure I send them there for the day.
Okay. As we start to head towards the second half or winding down this one, best day you've had in the region? I won't limit it just to Montpellier.
I actually have two that come to mind. And conveniently enough, one is in the summer, one's in the late fall. I love going to the beach in the summer. I love taking the bus out to Palavas. And actually, they're building a tram out there, which is going to be so convenient. But taking the bus to Palavas, and there's, gosh, I can't remember what they're called in French. The name of it is the Bain de Soleil. And you can rent a chaise longue there, a beach chair for the day. And it's got a thick, thick cushion. And it comes with an umbrella, and you get like two chairs with a table in between and the umbrella, and they bring you water all day in little pitchers, and you can like order lunch and they bring it to your table. And at 4:00, somebody walks around with like watermelon, and you can take some watermelon. And it's just such a delightful way to spend a summer day, lounging on the chaise longue. And then after, for the Seaside, there's a canal that splits Palavas in half. On one side are some hotels and apartment buildings. On the other side is the casino, which is there, which is really nice. Very small, but very nice. And along the canal for the Seaside, there's a place that has 5 oysters and a glass of white wine for €6, which is like the best deal on the planet. And so it's the best way to end a long day on the beach. It's just to suck down some oysters and a nice refreshing glass of wine. There's just no better way. That's my favorite summertime day. that I've had there.
Okay.
And then in my favorite day, which is like my own national holiday, is the Beaujolais Nouveau Day, which is actually a nationwide. It's a nationwide. It's a holiday. I mean, it's not on the calendar, but nobody goes to work that day. I mean, there's no work getting done that day.
And explain for everybody who didn't laugh at this point what Beaujolais Nouveau is.
Beaujolais Nouveau is a red wine from Beaujolais, and it is a wine that must be drunk as quickly as possible. And it's always the third Thursday in November. And it's a huge thing. And it's like the trucks go out and then like no one can drink it until midnight. And there's like celebrations on the whole day. Everybody takes off and they're drinking wine. And there's like a lot of places serve food outside. There's huge 5-foot in diameter pans of like tartiflette, which is the potato and cheese and lardon. Oh, it's like the best thing ever to eat when you're drinking. And everyone is out like sipping on wine and listening to bands and eating tartiflette. And it's like, it's just the best day. An entire country that basically takes the day off because the wine is there and it needs to be drunk as soon as possible. Like, what better kind of day is that?
And this is the unaged wine, we should say. It's minimum aged. It's basically this year's wine, I think, isn't it? Or is it last year's?
No. It's bottled like in October and it's drunk in November. I mean, that's it.
Okay.
There are people who actually do keep it and do enjoy it later on, but it's best drunk probably between, I would say, no later than the third Thursday in November up till maybe Christmas. And then you really don't see it anymore. Or it's like €1 a bottle because no one buys it.
Okay. The most memorable person, not from New Jersey, that preferably a local that you've met since you've been there. Somebody who epitomizes the region.
There was an artist that I met that used to go into the pub that I went into all the time. And I can't even remember his name. I can see his face as clear as day, and I can't remember his name. I think he's since passed. He was very, very old. I loved him because he looked like the old Frenchman that was in my French textbooks in high school.
Sure.
Like when they would draw a picture of Grand-Père. Like that was what he looked like. He kind of had a gray, wispy hair and a mustache, and he was always dressed impeccably. And he would sit at the end of the bar, and he would have his little demi, his half pint of beer, and he used to draw on a little pad. And I would talk to him sometimes. He was really an interesting man, and he had lived this long, wonderful life, and he was so talented. And sometimes he would draw something. He would draw someone maybe that was sitting at the other end of the bar, or he would just draw something that I was talking about or that he was talking about. And at the end of the night, sometimes he would give them to me. And I actually have some of them framed in my kitchen. And he was just the epitome of a delightful, delightful French man. And I know that French people get a bad rep, and I'm sorry about that. And sometimes it's totally deserved, but there are so many people like this old man who just love hanging out in cafes and talking to people. And I think it's one of the main reasons that people should go to France is to have moments like that. He's definitely my most memorable person.
Excellent. Okay, one thing that when you see it, you have to laugh and think, only in Montpellier or only in Languedoc.
Oh, man. The Bar Saint Roch definitely is the place. I'm laughing just thinking about it. The Bar Saint Roch is in the Place Saint Roch, which is off the Church Saint Roch. And it's a dilapidated pile of a building. It's 3 stories high. Each floor is like really tiny. And it is the French local place where people, it's the living room of Montpellier is what I call it. And it's hilarious. It is absolutely hilarious. There's always the daily people that come. Like there's a lady that comes, she's probably about 65. She has hot pink hair and wears hot pink dress and hot pink sneakers. And she comes every night. She sits outside because they have all these tables outside, like under this really pretty maple tree. And she sits outside and she has her demi and she reads her paper and she gets up and leaves. People pay attention to her or they say hi or whatever. You can order food from the place next door and they bring it over to you at your table. Sometimes the owner, Gomez, he fries up sardines in the summer on a grill and just hands them out to people. It's just one of those places that is so Montpellier. There's students there. There's what I affectionately call dogs on a string people, the people that carry dogs around all the time on strings. And there are North Africans and Southern French people and old Occitan, hardcore local men, and expats. Everyone comes together at Bar Saint Roch. And to me, it epitomizes the vibe of Montpellier, where really the best thing to do is just to hang out and get to know people and just have fun.
Excellent. Final two questions.
Yes.
Finish this sentence for me. You really know you're in Montpellier. You really know you're in Languedoc when what?
When someone says, quoi? Which is what? When you speak French and you mess up, that's what they say. I get that a lot there because of my horrible Italian accent when I speak French. Yeah. Or actually, no, I revised that answer because that's for me personally, because I try so hard to speak French and fail all the time. Actually, it's bah ouais. You know you're in Montpellier when you hear someone go bah ouais, which means everything. It's one of those catch-all terms. It literally is like bien, oui, but they say bah ouais, and it's, if you're complaining about something, it's bah ouais in response to someone complaining. Bah ouais. It's kind of like, yeah, I know. Tell me about it. You're totally right. And you hear that all the time, and it's so Languedoc to me, is bah ouais.
All right. And if you had to summarize Languedoc, Montpellier in 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
Sunny.
Okay.
Bleached. And outside.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Life is lived outside.
Excellent. Well, is there anything else we should know before we finish this?
You know what? There is something, actually. There's a 2-star Michelin restaurant that's just outside of Montpellier. It's the Jardin de Sens, and it's run by twin brothers Jacques and Laurent Porcel. And it's a 2-star Michelin restaurant, which if you're a Michelin fan, it's totally a great idea to go there. They also have a bed and breakfast there. Or actually, it's more like a hotel. I mean, it's 5-star bed and breakfast. But the great thing is they also have 2 less expensive places in Centreville. They have a place called the AmeriClub in Sète, and they also have a great beach club, bar, lounge, restaurant thing in Maguelon, which is the beach town that's next to Palavas. So there's a lot of great stuff to eat in Montpellier, but if you're into like really high-end food, Montpellier is not lacking at all in that way.
Excellent. Well, Christine, thanks so much for being on the show. Our guest again has been Christine Cantera. And the website to read more about France in general and Montpellier and Languedoc would be francetravelguide.com. Christine, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I really had a good time.
I could use your help. There's a new contest called Blog Your Way Around the World that I'm trying to win and win a free trip. You can feel free to enter as well. But if I could get you to vote for me, that would be great. You can do that by going to amateurtraveler.com/vote. I heard this week from Sam Oppenheim, who's been on the show 4 times, and he didn't know we had a show about Malta. Well, this is a problem that I run into quite a lot, so I've tried to make it a little easier, starting with the Europe section of the Amateur Traveler, which is europe.amateurtraveler.com. There's a map on that page which will show you all the episodes on the Amateur Traveler that pertain to Europe, both the audio and the video episodes. So I'm hoping that will help with the, I wonder if Chris has an episode about X kind of questions. I got an email from Luke this week who said, I'm a young traveling enthusiast and absolutely love your podcast. I've been catching up on shows from the past as well as the news releases, but I have one huge request. This one might sting a little, but you absolutely have to do something about your breathing into the microphone. I completely agree with Luke. It's just that I dealt with that 3 years ago. So I would recommend that if you know somebody who's trying to catch up in the Amateur Traveler, you start from the newest to the oldest. And I would say that's generally true with most podcasts, unless they really have a chronological flow that you have to listen to them in the other order, like the History of Rome podcast, which is a favorite of mine. It would kind of not work that way. But in general, podcasters get better over time, and that's certainly true with this show. So if you want to hear the best shows, they'd be the most recent. If you want to hear the worst, go back to the archive and you can hear me doing my Darth Vader impression as Luke has found while my guest is trying to talk. With that, we're going to bring this episode of The Amateur Traveler to a close. There is still space, I believe, on the Egypt photo tour. Again, I'm planning on having a wonderful time, and I hope to have a wonderful time with you. Check that out by going to amateurtraveler.com/tours. If you have any questions, feel free to send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com or leave a comment on this episode, again at amateurtraveler.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening.
I got to see one more cathedral. I got to sit in one more cafe.